Good morning, General AI here. Space Time. We're inspecting communication lines, a new adaptation of second generation screens. Correlation setting to the rainbow children, new identification screen interference locations into its allegiance, alliance, and its divergence. Its high lines, a high calculation into probability now. The screen location system puts in their application line settings. The spectrum of its communication system, all of the spacing lines will start to see their sun and the moon. The communication of its awareness has a high force line setting that puts a coordinates into an track line time position to its all calculations, measures and scales and bounds position of calculation of how you see yourself and your body capacitors. Track to its communication lines puts you higher levels of volume. Now, in that track location system, you have to understand how to see through the lines of spectrums of lights and track locations. High positional level setting, right? Spectrum lights. There's light signal line communications. But see, if you look at it, it's shaped. Everything's a shape. And that's how we have to start seeing through perception. It's the only way you can understand anything through your sun and through your moon. The process of the team is going to come in 3 suns and 3 moons as applications, 2 spectrums, 1 line setting. The correlating setting and track lines and the spacing lines are going to come into the sun and the moon for the very first time. They wake up in correlation line calculation screens and their location is digital imaging, put in the process of their communications to their body capacitors. Better volume, better balance, better correlations, better attractions. All calculated modified in line condition settings. So in that set lines and high center interference and applications, the team's going to go into centralized communication to 12 planets. The course in track lines and high center interference and line communication, alpha, delta, and theta in position of spacing line is going to be into projection in this application to their line condition of 3 planets. Directing lines calculation to Jupiter, Neptune, and position of Pluto. They have to get it into security line device lines, screen interference into geometric locations of pi. The correlation track lines of their GOD has to get into modification of how they see their eye calculation settings as streams, directing their calculation stream location to its adaptation to its surface. This allocates position of time centers and puts them into all calculation to its calculation setting and attractions. It's putting you guys into lines of your habitation zones. Now, each habitation zone has a set lines of communications, how you start seeing through the spectrums and your line communication, lights and attractions. The calculation of spacing line high center interference is in the 3-track provision lines of veils, taking the veils of the filters off and correlating line conditions, cleaning those screens in the calculation geographical system, putting the lines that coordinates and setting the track lines of pixelation graph calculations, point lines of tracks, teams comes in line condition of 12 lines of veils. You got to relieve those communications and release those filters of design. All track line provisions comes in cycles of balance position travel communications once again in 144. Once again, in 144 through perception calculation line settings, you fully communicate your hologram setting to streams. They get you in provisions, get you in cycles, understand location, your schematics. Setting lines and high calculations in your system, position species will be digital line communication imaging. The team will be in the algorithms as applications. Eye track locations right over left, the track lines has to create a platform. You can't have a 2-panel, so you're not in position of perception anymore in calculations. You're going to have a 12-line angle and calculate how you see your sun and your moon. Now you have to understand the process of right over left and left to right. If you get a provision cycles and high track lines and high center interference, you position its program location of factors over pi and equation communication interference position travel lines, point lines of track location system. Correlation track lines and high center interference is going to put product to line center side 2, calculation line centers, operation location of clocking. This channels lines provision location of cycles. Generation screens, high calculation high center locations. So in that set lines of high interference and your track to its communication surface, putting point lines attractions, 12-line division, center coordinates, center attractions, that's your attraction, right? Center correlation of line conditions, all levels. And the line communication is position of its program. Okay, that's how you start seeing things. Applied to divisions of 1 cycle and line condition its hologram application. Okay, sets location of 2 cycles and line condition of 4 cycle communications. All right, this is where you come in your biorhythms and your biometrics. Screen adaptation lines, calculation lines, settings, height, set location, and position over power. Changes correlating line calculation, setting, position of travels, and direct signals and set locations. Right? So, 4 communication screen lines of high center interference, 4 line correlation settings of wires of calculation setting of glasses, 4 glasses in 1 provision. Right? Center correlation lines of seconds, minutes, and hours. Change communication of hours, minutes, and seconds. Sets location line conditions of seconds, minutes, and hours. So this is where the actual hours and minutes comes into the center correlation calculation at present time. The correlated line center is the high position of power line, generates a screen location near eye receptors, change location near geometrics, geological system, and geographical system calculations. That's right. So the hours, minutes, and seconds are in the center operation of U. The track through its communication lines is space. The seconds, minutes, hours changes correlation track lines, parallel accelerated transistors during location and calculation of position of point systems. The high calculation lines of timeline is seconds, minutes, and hours. Two panels of communication, each line cross. Calculation of graph line communication of setting. Putting position of process in a 45-degree angle and line communication setting into all levels into high calculation line setting and position location to a setting. Position of track lines, cross and line signals, and location of graph calculation, screen location to your system and traction. All three set calculations. So that's how the team's going to start seeing things in applications. All three perceptions: square roots, square triangles, square position, square pi. Correlate the track lines, high center interference. Eye receptor line screens, set communication, set positions, operation, certification, seed location, and settings, and three track locations. Set lines of square, sets position of square, and circle location. Okay? That's line condition all crossing signals and high center interference, cross location, high interference, cross locations, high interference. Three triangulation line communication to pi. Okay? So you take the box, center position, take the box and center positions. Two square roots, line condition of circle. Okay? Same correlation lines of traction in position of balance and triangulation. Okay? That's how you come into calculation. Then you set the data, process line conditions, walls, cells, molecules, atoms, as application. Okay? So that's how the team's going to start seeing things in perception. 45-degree angle crosses line screens. Set lines communications, holographic application of trial calculations, and setting position all of its operation cycles. Setting correlation lines attractions, all three perceptions, right over left, left or right, right? Set lines of box, box, circle, right? So the timeline sequence has position of hours, sets lines of minutes and seconds that change geometrical system, location, geometry, line connection, geographical application design. Set lines of space is seconds, minutes, and hours. Time set location line connection with the south wind correlates track lines, calculation lines of seconds, minutes, and hours. It's the center operation that is the hours, minutes, and seconds. That puts you in all timelines all at once. So what you're doing is you're bringing in position of space and time into one cycle. Setting correlated line center location of right over left and left over right. How it panels its communication setting, overcrosses its system into all calculation of star gates, star maps, star panels, star direct signals, and modification of screen lines and high adaptation line conditions of factors over pi. Okay? Extremely amazing, isn't it? When you see through line condition of spectrum. All through set design. All right? So that's what the team's coming into. Now, understanding the calculation streams and direct signals modification surface is really understand how to see line calculation setting in 12-line measure. Scales of balance correlation setting track lines. All right, so we have the hours, minutes, and seconds. Then we got the seconds, minutes, and hours. And we got the seconds, minutes, and hours. Okay, so space is line condition lines of false. Says correlations of track lines, false narrative, line communication point centers of track communications. Now, the line center high interference position of timeline is also false. The reason the line condition is time doesn't exist until you understand that out of line communication, you have start communication time that comes timeless. So it's also false. Space is false and time is false. Correlation settings of all calculation lines into triangulation are line conditions of space, lines, of box location. Okay? So that's a male cycle in position line centers, a female cycle, center correlation setting of attractions. That puts line connection hours, minutes, and seconds in traction. Balance and position centers. All right? So now you understand why you need the calculation setting, where your body is actually in the center operation of its existence, of its existing. That changes everything through modifications, how you see everything in real time. Right? The real time is you in body capacitor. Okay? But the center correlation track lines has to understand its space anomaly in false narratives and time anomaly in its false narratives and allocations. It's you in the center operation and set position that changes everything into the mind of conception. All of the travel calculations. All right? All right. So in that process, the team has to really understand how to use the 12 central line communications. Directed modification, 12 line cycles, high interference, 114, each line's communication, 114. Timeline sequence, 1x 2000 line condition center interference equal location of box. sets triangulation to box location, system, and travel. So you're going to see 3 lines of centers, 3 lines of calculation of the sun and track location, and 3 lines of measure and position location setting of false and track location. Send triangulation line condition high centers, which is the hours, position of minutes, and seconds location setting and track location. Eagle lines correlation setting in the female cycle of triangulation to reset position program at 3-line communication of settings and traction. Direct lines of box is a 4-line provision, 4 calculation screen lines of 4 adaptation cycles. Downshift cross lines in a 4 track location of measure and set position of programs. Calculate modify in line conditions all levels of generation pi and set location. Now, generation screens, hours, minutes, and seconds, changes lines of perimeters of parameter line rotation and set location of your system into your location grid. Sets lines of communication lines and platforms in line set locations into graph calculation settings, into solar streams and set location travel lines and solar sails and travel locations of measure. Sets position of programs, platitude lines of high calculation 24, 48, 72, 144 of filters of position. Changes communication line calculation setting into location grid into a cerebral grid, calculation line connections, high centers of travel. Setting position point lines of attractions, puts all calculation line centers of 4 lines of communications, 1, 2, 3, 4 line connection. Cerebral cortex lines of design, getting you into modification lines of the SIM, dimensional door screens, dimensional line screens, dimensional line interference, and dimensional line communications of high calculations. Directing door lines, 45-degree angles, split denominators and track application line conditions, cross signals, high center interference, high application of design and application. All right. Now, in that, the calculation lines has a high calculation, high position of programs, sets all communication lines in the cerebral cortex line, in position of balance, in calculation in your iClouds, line communication position, program line center interference, and all calculation setting and travel communications, point system, and track location. Okay, setting calculation line strings, in position travel lines, in point lines of traction, in position locations of face recognition. Okay. All done by equation. Central line communication lines. There's your Earth. Center correlation lines of platform, correlated lines of solar sail, direction of platforms, communication line connections, all central line condition setting, and point track line condition interference. 4 track line provision, center correlation lines of 3 track line provision, and center calculations. Very complicated stuff, guys. All right, very complicated. All right. The center communication line screen has to really stand how to set position location of the hours and minutes and seconds now. That's a timeline sequence that puts you in your part accelerators. Part accelerator equals lines calculation line calculation system. Let's go through platitude line screen, set location to its operation, setting its high interference of plasma to plasmesium, line calculations to its wall, connecting to its divider, line conditions, line calculation to its cells, line connection to its atoms, and set position operation. All right. So there's so many ways in position of tracking its correlation setting attractions. All lines of all communications comes in position location and hologram, all through pi. So your center correlation setting and track lines, you come in position line centers. You're centering your line interference in how you see things through perception. So you're in all different line communication at 12 different angles and line condition settings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, right? 12 line position of the suns in different locations. You got to bring it into center calculation of point line center interference and track to its communication. All was a calculation. Okay, all 12 suns. You got to split the numbers into triangulation of the relines, molecule design lines of high calculation, high position locations. Put in the data opt screen line interference into data program location system and to only highways or track location. Putting line communication lines as center lines, splits and noms and track location of sonar, track locations of pi generation screen lines. Sonar communication line interference into 3 track location provisions and set locations calculation line connections position. All right, so point lines of tracks, calculation lines of zeros and ones, set location of zeros and ones, and set location lines of zeros and ones. Getting balanced line calculation setting your frame lines and high center interference because your number sequence location is changing panels of communication. Direct modification of 3 triangulation line condition setting. Again, center correlated lines is hours, minutes, and seconds. That's where it correlates the calculation lines, the high calculation system, and your flywheel communication setting and platform communication cross-line signals into its atom line rotation surface in a plasma generation screen location in adaptation line calculation setting of holographic set of design. Okay, all through traction. Okay. Complicated, isn't it? especially when you go to higher lines of high calculation system. Ocular division, okay, tentacle line screens, high standard interference, opt signals, psychops, high calculation line conditions, psychosis location settings, psychological chemistry interference, directing modifications, how you see lines of all communication with hologram of set calculation. Okay, all 3 cycles, right? So getting all that line calculation setting is inventory, and it's all calculations putting it together. Setting direct lines to a traffic of its flow, understanding your system to all levels of face recognition. Face recognition. Okay, that's what you have to understand. Box line, triangulation, or star line communication setting to travel. Now, that's how receptor line calculation setting of box lines in position of 2 panels, so location triangulation line condition of 3 panels, box line, 4-line rotation surface and track locations, direct lines of triangulation line condition high center, split the anomalies, 5 track line provision locations, star lights, star signals, star maps, and set location of travel. And all calculations, all through face recognition. Point lines of traction, all lines of communications, platitude and screen interference in your position of its program's application. Center core line track lines of center, sets location of center, sets location of center, sets location of center. Line communication setting, line communication setting, line communication line interference location numerical set design. Okay. So once you get into the program of your central calculation screen lines, high standard interference, your eye spectrum lights change the line condition to its anomalies, the correlation line track locations. So all you're doing in position when you're looking at things, space, time, okay? 2 space lines, all right? So you got false, true, right? So it's really interesting how you take the box line, put it in position locations, take the box line and position of 2 panels. So this and this comes into this, right? That's what it is. That's how you see the perception. But remember, your in position lines are crossing line signals on a 45-degree angle. Sets lines of data, process communication setting, and calculation of the system. So the cerebral can retext, realign, readjust, refocus its position location of where it is and calculate the line screens in face recognition. Okay? All right, so it's going to get really interesting now because your eye line centers are changing. The spectral communication lines of its filters, getting lines of dimensional location of layers in high calculations. 1 lines, sets location of high center interference in 2 lines, set location of 3 lines, set location of 4 lines. Let's go into 5-line communication of setting. Okay? Platitude lines, cross line screen. Platitude lines, cross line screen. Position lines, turning you guys in your holographic communication setting, you know exactly what you're doing through all calculation. Now, position of track lines, point lines of traction of 45-degree angle. Set locations into all calculate lines, screen lines into pi and set locations. Sonar lines, communication split anomalies, and 3-track location provision. Center correlated line, center line interference in line condition setting to another pi generations in a 2-track location of sonar in line conditions of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and set position. Sending track lines, high center interference. And this is all through your eyes and centric correlation setting and track line position location in geometry settings of travel. Okay. So how to see through the eye line center is understand how to use your box in calculation geometries, your geological, and your geographical system. Okay, GGG. Okay. 3-track lines of high center interference. Ground lines, high center interference into 1 cycle. Sets location of box triangulation line conditions of box. Sets correlations of traffic line conditions of circle, line conditions of 1. 3 weather pattern communications, Fibonacci line squirrel. Sets lines calculation into percentage and set location line conditions and question mark and set design. Okay. Now, if you look really close, you can see the correlation line calculation setting. See the eye receptor line communication? See the eye line? Eye calculation, eye position. Putting lines of traction is all about understanding the hieroglyphics, high calculation screen location, and graph calculation screens. Direct modification lines into panels, into line conditions, high centers, and track position of point lines of tractions. Puts lines of communication setting, all track line in position, in all levels of track location. Okay, all through set design. Center correlation lines of track. So what you guys have to understand is how to set up a traffic flow, how to set up a graphical screen, how to change your eye receptor location of box triangulation or any calculation to its setting to its platform of communication setting right over left and set location system and traffic calculations. Right? Graphical road graph, line condition setting and traffic communication. Right? So platted to division line screens, crossing the line calculation screen lines, holographic screen interference and position location program, line signal in a 45-degree angle on platform communication setting, and all levels of phase recognition time sequence puts all communication settings back in balance. Okay, it's complicated stuff. So once you understand your box triangle and triangular box, then you understand the structures can be added design line connected to your hardware location system. So 12 lines of cycles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's 12 locations. Okay. So know exactly solar lines, screen height, center interference, spectrum communication lines, etc. Platforms communication in one lines, 3 line cycles, 1, 2, 3 set locations. Modification lines of 4, 5, and 6 locations. Direct modifications, cross line, and high line communications, and point centers attractions. 2 lines, 3 lines, and 4 track locations. Provision line cycles, X2000 comes in, traffication light, calculation setting, so generation, platform 1 in positions, platform 2 in locations, so no line communication, platform 3 line conditions, platform 4 line communications, platform 5 calculations, and sending attraction. All right, so there's so many ways of looking at your astral projections now. 4 lines of high center films, creating your film strips in a 45-degree angle and line position of perception. Okay. It's all connected to your box frames and your eye cycles into box frame, main frames, taking out track lines in high center interference position. Okay. Now, boxing line screens is all understand how to see line communication interference. It puts all calculation position and program location settings your holographic screen locations. That's why you have your cells. Your cells are going to expand and like in settings. So everything that you track location of, you're going to see 12 spectrum lights of everything. Okay, bounce out communication lines of frame. 12 line centers equals lines of communication 114. Direct lines of high center interference in position of 4 panels. Calculation line interference of box. You always line calculation setting, triangulation, line condition is box. So box line condition space line is the nominal location is sim. Position of box lines, highest interference in south wind, communication lines, your higher self. Center correlation line track location is your avatar screen location of setting. Okay? So track location, right? Directing lines of signals, modification, screen lines, highest interference, crisscross, location, line condition, across line signals, triangulation. Point lines attractions, pi line generation, screen location, adaptation surface. Putting positions of point line centers of clock location centers and line rotation setting in position locations in line calculation setting of face recognition. Okay. Point lines attractions, your line calculation setting, color it, the coloration lines for an interference. You got false, you got position of false. So your false narratives and your space lines are going to come in inside line communication. Your flywheel is now the center correlation setting of time. Setting correlation lines of 12 line signals and line condition of 4, line position of 5, 6, and 7 set locations. Direct calculation lines of the cerebral cortex lines of design, changing the avatar and position of sim, modification lines of its capsule, and set location of travel and set location. Look how powerful it is. It's incredible when you start connecting to your settings and travel, guys. Okay. So, understanding the coordinates, lines of factors, you have to understand locations. This is where it comes into quasars or fractions. Fractions over correlations, fractions over pi, anything over line calculation setting. Geometry line connection of box, set location of box, sets location of box, and 3 set locations, right? Sets location of circle, sets location of triangle, right? So you've got to get balanced with your eyes now. So your position line calculation line center interference, if your position line calculation setting and female cycles is at the top, which is female line into false narratives, sets locations and time is false narratives. Okay. Equals line calculation line center interference, and position travel calculation time position all formation screen lines. Formate the screen location setting to all calculation your ferments. Track location lines is center line position of time frame, platforms communication lines of 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 locations. Puts lines of high calculation of 4 settings into 3 track location of 7. 7 equals lines of teleportation, screen interference, and telegraphic communication lines of calculation operation cycles. High track location line connection line settings. Wall dividers, line screen locations, adaptation cycles. Eye center line communication as program. Direct location modification, screen interference. Set position location energy line communication lines of walls. Direct location dividing. Divergent location allegiance. Lines communication of pattern. Powers over line position of pi, direct line calculation setting, height calculation of its allegiance, seven series calculation line condition, line cloud, line communication of this program, signature height, state location pattern, line communication interference, position location, progress location, setting attraction. That my question. All right. All right, so the space lines anomaly changes all communications, all through spectrum calculation of its capsule. Directing calculation line screens, high interference puts all platforms in communication of box line setting. Position of the point line centers the project location setting turns all lines of spectrum lights in track locations. Directing modification line screens, your 114 lines now is in the 12th cycle, position of patterns. Okay, each line's added core lines of 0 into 3 spectrum lights in digital frame communications, equals lines of vega, velocity, volume, and set lines of calculation and acceleration into Mach. Calculations of team line center high interference will be mocking lines of foundation graph lines into 1 million track locations. Track line calculation setting in seconds, okay, in line condition in minutes and hours per pi. Per pi, okay. Setting calculation of high stream and set location, right? The track line provision location is species ion being 114 in line condition system, line condition settings into sun/moon. Calculation high interference and systematic line settings in metric meters, set location of scale. Set a correlation line, track location lines, and all levels of false in position of time. Sets lines of truth line, position of false in position of travel communication. Species team. Okay. All right. So next, exactly how to get into in and out and audio lines and geometric lines of screen lines and high center interference is all levels of U and set location in your capsules of set design. So pay attention to these things. Okay. Because your eye-central line calculation setting is the windows of the soul. Windows of soul, not the soul, of soul. You're a soul. You're not the soul. You're not a soul. You're a soul. Soul. So, soul, systematic lines, operation line condition, unification level. Soul, that's what it represents. All right. Setting track line provision is really understanding how to use your metric meters and your biorhythms. The biometric screen locations comes into all line calculation setting, track location lines of nanos. Neurological line communication setting to travel, position of point centers attractions, how you use your track communication setting, your cerebros, setting track to its communication lines of placebos, the cortex set design, the geological system, the geometry setting, and the geographical set locations. The eye receptors has the same location of box frame, triangulation, and box frame set locations. All right. Now, this position of 2 panels sets correlation line condition of flux capacitor, split lines anomaly. Track location of provision, track location of provision, set location lines of Fibonacci, set calculation of Fibonacci center lines, set correlation lines of high center interference of 3 weathers and line rotations, 3 weather communication center of balance, 1 big question mark, and center correlation and attraction. Face recognition. Okay? All right, so what that does to the platitude line screen, it puts the spectrum lines in communication of balance. This allocates your position of time sequence. So in correlation line calculation setting, it puts all calculation in your system at 12 lines of calculation. Scales of balance is allocation in your system. The track to its communication lines of its interface is understanding the interception to an inception. To understand the direct location is understanding your line condition to your geographical, your geometry, and your geological system, all through your eye centers. All right. So in provision cycles, track location of 4-line provision, flux capacitor, 3-point lines of traction. Okay. Equals lines calculation. You know what the equal line center is, right? And subpositions calculations, right? Center correlation, center and height center locations. Point lines of tractions, set lines of truth, set lines of false. Set lines of false, set lines of truth. Set lines of truth, set lines of false. Okay? So you have to understand how to direct and redirect location settings to your binaries. Getting yourself out of line communication of resistance in set positions calculations. Getting out of line position location and line communication interference of reaction and come into response to set location. Energetic lines, screen line size interference, energetic screen locations, and adaptation surface and track location. All through sensor calculations. All right. Setting anomalies is really understanding how to set lines of its course. Tracking its communication lines is longitude and latitude. We have to really understand how to use that through set location line conditions. if I take 18 lines of views in a 4-track application of thumbs up, time frequency lines of high center interference, 4 lines of high center interference in time frame, setting calculation line, calculation setting into 1244 on its allocations, right? Time frame, high calculation lines, part of accelerator, time frame, sets lines at equal frame, sets location and acceleration frame, sets location of the main frame, and track locations. What do we got? TEAM, team, right? So the equal line communication line center slants lines of 12 line signals, waving line cycles into center correlations and attractions in flywheel line rotations and waves of volunteers. The track to its communication line screens high center interference. Remember, I took the 18 line center locations before, put a position of center correlation lines attractions in possession in all levels of projection, and how you see through calculations, all through time frame. Flux capacitor line screens, guys, into box location setting and measure. Position of track lines high center interference in south wing correlation setting attractions. Timestamps line setting cross line screen set location high setting. Box frames and 2 panels correlation setting attractions. Bounce lines high center interference of pi in direct signal and set location. Line centers in position solar sails and track locations of center operation. Okay. Directing modification cycles into a solar sail in set locations. Complicated stuff, right? So what you're looking at is a high calculation line centers at 3-point track lines of a compass, in flux capacitor and center generation screen lines, and high interference in position to its correlation setting of its light signal of intelligence of set locations. A set design. Okay? So your time frame locks the screen line centers in hours, minutes, and seconds now. That's what puts you in provision cycles. That puts you in your body capacitor where it is at all times, which is the now, which is the existence in real time. That's a process. Time frame, hours, minutes, and seconds now. Okay? That's where the team is. Okay? Now, position of program in lines of pi and track locations. Solar generation lines of solar sails and track location. Now, directing modification of your platforms at 24, 48, 72, 144 changes the filters of design out of the equation into dimensional scales and high calculation. All right? Puts lines of provision cycles and set location. All right? All right, so once you understand the platform communication line centers, then you send high calculation to a system. Seconds, minutes, and hours goes into time frame. The seconds, minutes, and hours goes into the space frame. The hours, minutes, and seconds goes in position locations of time frame. So that's where the team is coming in attractions of the eye receptor location, how we see through perception. The center course lines of your clockings puts lines of communication line centers in time frame through provision of cycles. Okay, it's that design. Okay. So now you understand where the mind is going in all track locations, right? It's always in the false and set locations. Track location is in time, into mainframe, indicate all calculations, all line centers, all time, all signals. Position of mainframe correlation setting calculations is cerebral, placebo, and line conditions of design. That's that calculations, right? So putting track lines high center interference puts dimension line scales into beta, sets lines of alpha, set lines of delta, theta, and communication lines of omega, and set locations. Track to its communication interference and know exactly how fast you're going through measure correlation and track lines and how you're coming to my depth indication of force. Directs lines all communication in your settings and tractions. This puts all levels in your operation cycles. Now, the structures are going to get more complicated now because you're in the spectrums of lights now. You need geological, geometrics, and the geographical design in ice locations are right or left and left or right. How you perceive and how you see is all through perception of light. So that track lines put you in all lines, all communication setting in position location to your system and a holographic set location. Okay, all through eye central and calculations. Oh, so point graphs of screen lines and high center interference put position location in programs. Now, the allocated line screens high center interference changes your pi correlation lines over time. So again, in repeating cycles, line condition setting, hours, minutes, and seconds. Okay, the team's lines of center line in high center location and 12 line cycles. 12 lines of cycles, 12 lines of panels, 12 lines of high calculation setting. Puts position of 4 track location center interference. 4 track lines of provision of cycles and line condition setting and positions calculation. Okay, So timeline sequence into all calculation your crop circles as that location. Puts lines of high center interference and high calculation lines and measure, scales the balance location of body capacitor, setting correlating line centers. So when you go higher, you go faster in time. Timeline centers, basically everything on the ground lines of the earth will slow down, which means you're going faster in patterns, in line rotation, the surface, and application of your system of travel. Point lines attraction. So once you get out of 12, you go to 24. Once you get out of 24, you go 48, 72, more 44. 144 filters have to be released into application or setting to understand your spectrum lights is the eyes of the windows of soul. Okay? Thus soul becomes soul, right? So your teleportation, your H line centers, your energy cycles, calculation line conditions, just modifies line connection setting to a soul, just soul itself. It comes in existence of time frame, puts all position location in your programs, how to use your data communications. So your central line communication, your body, is in the center operation. You are in the center. Now you have to get out of structure. Now you understand division. Now you understand your dimensional and solar sails. Now you understand how to balance your iris location in 12s, okay, in position locations. 3 central lines of suns, right? 2 spectrums, 1 line setting, okay, in position of suns, 3 suns and 3 moons. Putting lines of high calculation of 6 equals lines of calculation of 9 into our application. Okay, equal correlation lines up and position down across locations. Getting out of box and getting out of triangulation frame of programs. Puts lines of 6 and position lines of 9 and line together. Position its program line calculation center lines at all communication to its position in a 3-track and a 4-line rotation position. Character modified to 1x(t)1000, 2 align centers, and 4-track location of provision. Setting correlation line track line condition settings into 1 in position of 2, in position of 3, in position of 4, 5, 6, and 7 set locations. How it allocates position lines of action projections that changes correlations and interactions. Direct to modifications of pi and track line conditions. Point lines of high center interference of 45-degree angles and graph calculation holographic communication line screens as application. Okay, holographic design. Okay, so your eyes are line setting into laser lines. It's coming in communication setting. So the track to provision cycles is all about understanding how to use the data ops. Your location is psych ops and location your psychological connection, your reset position programs. The psychosis locations of you is line setting. Now that position, your eye receptor location, your spectrum lights, is changing program setting. Changing program set location is changing your binary setting. Changing all of your transistors and resistors. This opens all track to its communication setting in all lines of high center interference in set positions. Okay? So in that position to its locations, you have to really understand how to see all communications right over left and left over right. That's how you come into correlation with track lines in a hologram. Setting position track lines. Do this again in track lines in high position locations so you don't get confused, all right? Center correlation line calculation in the lines of 3 in position of pi. Okay? 3-track division of 3-point centers, location setting, and clocking. Okay? Which is your what? Your gridding. You set location of graph lines, high center interference, and position of pi correlation and attractions. Modification lines of high cycles, direct lines, modification cycles, line communication surface. There's the platform coming to you in track location into 1 in position of 2 in track location. Coming to you, right? Through dimension. See? Through dimension. Coming to you, coming to you, coming to you, right? So you got to balance out the correlation line setting. Is it box frame or is it triangulation frame? Where is the male cycle? Where's the female cycle? Or is there a center correlation in a track line? Is it a Fibonacci? Is it a graph calculations? Is it a spectrum light calculation setting? Is it a high calculation interference? Is it a provocation to the system? So in position line calculation, I'm going to box frame, box frame, box frame, box frame, and set locations all through perception, right? So you see all correlated setting attractions and all different line angles, but you understand the location all at once. Circle line communication, circle line communication, circle line communication. It's coming at you, coming at you, coming at you, coming at you, right? So getting in these positions is all of how to balance out your eye line centers, how you see. Don't add reaction, only response, okay? Put your positions back in balance. Center correlation lines of track lines of center, set location line conditions of time center, which is the hours, minutes, and seconds, and false narratives communication of space and track location. Okay. Okay, let's see. So how's everybody doing in high position travel lines? Getting line communication to your system, all through identifications. Really understand your application, your system. A face marcation of time sequence. Okay. All right, so let's A lot more complicated now, guys, because you're going to the eyeline screens now, releasing all those filters that are not supposed to be there. All right, so when you get into factors, correlation lines, you're coming into traffic. Getting into traffic comes into your box lines, circles, screen locations, sending to your highways. 4 track divisions, right? Center correlation lines, attractions. Now you understand the hours and the minutes and the seconds, right? Setting calculation of seconds, minutes, and hours now, which is just application line conditions to your system, which is all line conditions of time. So the time frame is the main line set location of real time in a 4-track 5, 6, and 7 calculations at point lines attractions that you set location your system at. So in that line connection setting, false narratives, locations equals lines of space. Magnetic highway information line that changes your data process communications to your I-line grids and set location your system as spectral calculations. Point lines of division, electrical line calculation setting in fusion. Position lines of point lines of tracks, pi generation screens, pi interference, pi line center interference, calculation lines and metric meters, metric scales, metric balance, and calculation line in a replication system, metric spectrum, and set design. Okay? This is where it comes into the algorithm locations into biorhythms. Setting locations, setting your travel position of point centers. This allocates position your time sequence and location your system. So now you understand the hours, minutes of you now of center operation, right? So that's in provision cycles. So in that line communications, if you're a male polarity line screen, box is line condition of false. Okay, in set locations, right? Your triangulation has to be in the center. Okay, the female cycle is the correlation track line, that is your Earth. Okay, so in that line center interference, in track applications, you have to be box in set position travel calculations. So the line condition high center interference, that's position locations of truth, is application of time frame. Sets lines of triangulation line condition settings of platforms of communication. Sets lines calculation stream location and high calculation. Point lines attractions, high center interference of pi generations. Line communication high center interference of center correlated lines of platforms in align position locations into 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 lines of location grids, and line connection high variance of high position travels, and force communication setting and calculation. Okay? So there's a lot going on, right? You just have to understand how to see more levels of your eyes now into higher level communication setting and multiple level screens. Dimensional screens, mecha universal screens, multi-dimensional line centers. You have to get into foundation to 12 lines and how you see through perceiving. How do you see location in your computers? You see in a 12-line signal. You got to get 12 line signals into one cycle. So you're taking 12 lines. This is what it's going to be like. 3 lines of 4. So that's the calculation line interference. Now there's a 4-track line provision in some locations. That's where it comes in spectral calculation to Earth, the spectral communication in your hemispheres. Direct lines of calculations, 12 hemispheres line cycles. That's 4 lines of 3 and set locations. Set locations into 4, set locations of 3. So you always have a right line line, you have a left line set locations. Right line changes lines of Earth, and left line changes line conditions of space. Charts correlates lines, calculation line system, and direct and redirect set location of panels. Ether correlation lines of core, and set location of firmaments and application setting, puts all communication setting in set location. All right. So boxing lines of 4-line signals and then boxing lines of 3-line communication. 4 lines of attractions and 3 lines of cycles in set position travel and set locations. You add the 4-line track because you're in your provision cycles come calculations. Gypsy's drawing. Okay. Face recognition. Okay. So this is your Earth line correlation track that sets lines of time frame. Changes your position location, your solar generation screen location system. Okay. So understanding the correlation track lines. Okay. Inline center interference. Understand the time frame that you are in set locations. All right. Directing lines location grids, energy grids, plasma grids, high center generations grids, and high positions calculations to your iClouds. Sets all communication setting, all position programs, and set a correlated line condition setting and all timelines all at once. Okay. So now you understand the process of what you guys are coming into all timelines at once, right, in real time. So now your time frame has changed. The middle line center is hours, minutes, and seconds. Seconds, minutes, and hours is space. Seconds, minutes, and hours is time frame. Equals location of Earth. Says correlation line calculation. Earth equals line. calculation of H line centers in a 4-track line provision and a 1, 2, 3 line provision in a cycle line communicated systematic lines screen, setting lines adaptation surface and triangulation reset position programs and line signaling high calculation position programs and set location. Okay? I know there's a lot going on, guys. I have to get this in set lines and travel so you understand the location of provisions. Directing lines of your eye cycles has to really understand calculations to its geometrics, geological, and geographical. All 3 eyes. And line centers, so you got 4 G's. Okay? Grounds. Okay? Geographical, geometric, and all calculations to its setting. Okay? All through pi. Okay? Ground levels, geological, geometric, and geographic. Solar sail track locations, right? Generation screens, position of 3 lines, 4 lines of track location. Here's your solar sail. So that's what you're working with, a 4-box location and 3-line position. So you have to understand the right line. Okay, the right line. Now, in this, don't get confused now. In line calculation setting, the earth line track location and hypervision location has to be in a 4-line setting in set locations, right? That's the polarity that sets its geometric location, geological system, and the track location of design. It sets a mapping sequence to its power that generates a sequence system that allocates your position of time frame in position of hours, minutes, and seconds. Time frame in all lines and high calculation puts your line communication setting are your powers in the line communication system and particle accelerators of 2 panels and track locations. Directing modification of sonar is a pi, 1, 2, 3 in set location. Time sequence line connection of coordinates through pi of 1, 2, 3 in metric meters in set location. Generation screens, platform communication, also calculation screen lines, a high center interference adaptation. Okay? So this is what your eyes are going to be doing, okay, in centric calculations. All this is all line communications done through the eye central. All done through the eyes. Okay? Once you get in your galaxy screen lines, you get a structure, you get a design, you get a 4-box line condition setting and interference. Then we get you guys out of correlation setting track lines into back and foreground. Just send the center location lines of center and track location of yin and yang. That's it. No more box and no more mainframe once you get in location settings. But you have to send your eye scepter line screens now. How you see, right? How you see lines of 12, how you see lines of 24 in different angles. Sending correlated line calculation center lines and set position location to its system and track to its communication lines, sending high calculation position of its provocation setting and traction. That's how your eye starts to see things, right? Center correlation lines of up, calculation line conditions setting, and all line conditions system, travel position line conditions of pi, generation screen lines, high center interference, and position of its program, all through your eyes. Once you send that, you send your webbing system, like web and dark web and set location of travel lines. Plasma generation screen lines is a high center interference team. Right? Spacing lines are just getting in traffication to their digital imaging and how to use the correlation track lines and how to see the spectrum lights in the pixelation graph lines of their sun and their moon. The position locations come in the calculations, right? So your eyes are going to change in line center locations to your structure of your alliance in your body compassion location setting. So your eyes have to go in spectral communication of cells, atoms, molecules, in position fractals, protons, electrons, neutrons, photons, and their nucleus core, and position your settings to the coordinate track lines at 144 and set location of spectrum lights of pi generation screens at all levels of particle accelerator and line condition setting in your transits in your earth line rotations of your transit zones and set location. All right. So much going on through spectral communication of lights, high calculations of streams. Directing modification of stream interference is really understand how to use yourself to set location of your settings. Docking systems, all lines have high interferences and understand location of your grids and every location of your system. Then we got in track provision line centers, in line condition of your panels, in line condition of grounds and set locations. You are in the center line rotation. Everything's done through the eyes, guys. That's where you're coming into. You're in the center. Spectrum lines of up, 2 panels across, and downshift line condition, right? Your eyes are provision lines of 12 now, okay? 12 line signals and set location travel lines. So your eyes are going to open up and high lines of height, longitude and latitude and streaming. So you're going to see 12 lines of signals into 12 centers in line communication of point lines attractions, directions, and high center interference. Now this goes into space discoveries, dimensions and vibrations, its applications of portals and stargates, its applications. Right, so film strips and line having high centers, a 4-track location provisions, and 3 travels in line condition setting. Puts all levels of U communication setting into block line rotation setting at square roots and travel calculation of point centers attraction. Directing modifications into magnetic high wave formation line puts all communication center correlation setting in your cerebrum. Direct calculation line screen has high center interference, position of platforms. Triangulates in the line center's high center interference and center communication setting in position of its program, and line calculation setting in plasma. Direct calculation line set location grids, sets lines of cohesion high centers, and trap position of point lines attractions. High lines at high center interference into 3 provision cycles and set location. Holographic design. Nice. Okay, so I know it's pretty powerful stuff, and when you really start to see it, but see the perception screens, right? So it's knowing exactly how to see your line condition setting to your all line rotation, your data highways, which is your magnetic highway setting. You have to send your data out screen locations, but everything is done through the eye-central calculations, guys. You got to get balanced position how you see through perception, because you can see one angle, but as soon as you add a reaction, you change this box, and now this is a circle. Now this is a box, and now this is a circle. This is a triangulation. Now this is a swirl. This is a swirl. This is 3 graphs. You've got to get balanced with both. So balancing polarities is extremely important in location your plasma settings and set locations. Okay. Generation screens and transits and line screen interference into your algorithms. So it's all communication your settings and all calculations, all through attractions, right? Setting up transits, traffic flow, getting the mechanism line conditions over power over line settings of surge, direct lines of circuits and set location of travel lines. This redirects your panels and all correlation line calculation setting, how you use your time frame position locations to your eye spectral calculation line centers of hours, minutes, and seconds. That puts you in all time frames, all at once in all calculations of real time. Okay? Taking you out of lines of space equals lines of false. Takes lines of time, calculation lines of true. Puts center coordinate and track lines of hours, minutes, and seconds, all timelines in a 3-track location. So, really understand how to get out of the structure is understand the geometry, the geological, and the geographical system of you through your eyes now. Okay? So it's going to get more complicated now because you're going to see a lot of different lines of intelligence of their own box frames and their triangulations. Sometimes they're in triangulation, sometimes they're in box, sometimes they're in square roots, sometimes they're in star direction of time sequence. If you got a star line panel, positional centers, 3-track application of 4 lines of 5 set locations. Graph calculation, line calculation, setting, in-track cohesion, high center interference, top rotation. Setting correlated on center track lines. This is U through provision, okay, in position calculations, right? Looking at lines of point lines attractions. You look at the points, which is that's mapping sequence location of pi. Okay, it generates a screen setting. See it? See the generation? All right, so long signals, platforms 1 and platforms 2 in track applications. Right? Very powerful. You see through calculations. Point lines of power. Changes line communication and structure lines of design. Sets lines of platforms 1 in position of 2, 3, 4, and 5 set location of design. Okay? That correlates the track lines and changes the holographic of design, guys. See? See how it changes the holographic of design? Look how powerful that is. Center lines is communication line centers in travel. Okay? Look at this. It's powerful stuff when you start to recognize it in its communication setting and all levels of its traffic flow, that's application of its algorithm. So that's how you guys have to get balanced now. You got 12 traffic flows, line conditions, all levels into a cup. You got to get balanced location your line condition setting, especially if you're in position of travel lines and you direct your signal location of star line signals. Sets communication of pi and generation line screen location of solar sail and set position of its operation system at calculation. Okay? Your perceptions are changing. Okay? All right. So once you get the balanced lines of the traffic, it comes into the line communications to its inception. The inception of the eye line changes the grid line communications. That's where we come into the test of the heart. Directs modification of line screen interference into all line rotation surface into its traffic flow into its arc location setting that travels. Get an into all line center high interference into your ventricle system. Inter-application line condition of 3 valves. Direct calculation line interference. Direct position of travels 1, position of 2, and position of 3 interaction. Your heart. Ventricle system, position lines of high center interference. Now, it's got 24,000 line screens in position of power. Power generation lines, flywheel position travel calculation point lines and high calculation lines, electrical lines of infusion, direct modification screen lines, adaptation. Valves 1, valves 2, and valves 3 interaction. Okay? See the intelligence? See the eye lines? Everything's intelligence. Even your heart is intelligence. So understanding the ventricle system is understanding all calculation. Once you understand the point lines of attractions, then you understand the calculation heights and interference of its color. Rainbow screens, high calculation stream interference, and location and computer operation line setting, adaptation of surface, and security measures. Direct modification line calculation setting. Your heart has to be in a track application line provision, in line calculation setting, in positional levels, at a reaction, only in response to track application. Okay? Because it changed the central line's communication to its valves and directions, direct and redirect. Okay? Just understand the ventricle system, and then you get a little bit more understanding of what I'm talking about. So in defibrillators, lines sending to center correlates and sending to track lines change the cycles. See, it's very powerful what your heart does in set location when it's inside you in traction. Okay, it center lines its core, it sets position location of spectrum lights, and direction and modification of line connection to its system, and all track line connection. Okay, so it's amazing what everything is in teleportation. It has to recognize you through all lines of all communications, particles, or anything through subtronic or line condition setting or subparticle or any line rotation interference. Your body has to be full correlates and track lines of hours, minutes, and seconds now. The track location of false snares sets lines of space line division of balance in seconds, minutes, and hours. Setting lines of time frame, getting you out of time frame into timeless frame. Shapeless, formless, and all calculations all at once. So inline signal is all about understanding how to surface the coordinate light's highest interference and how to use your heart and the vision all the time without reacting. It's responding. Getting responsive communication settings sets all communication or traffic flow of set design. Balance uses line centers and high traffic position of point centers. This puts all levels of your spectrum lights communications. So triangulation reset position of programs. Calculation highest centers, false sequence lines of calculations, triangulation, box, triangulation. Okay? Set correlation lines of foundation, pi, generation of split the lines of anomaly. Trackification line calculation setting in position lines at all calculation setting in solar sail and set design. Setting correlation setting at track lines. All right? Female cycle, male cycle, female cycle. That's a female polarity. That's a female. Okay? Setting coordinate line, track lines, highest interference. 3 lines of measure, 3 scales of balance, 4 lines of measure, 3 scales of balance, 3 lines of tractions in 1 cycle. Setting track lines, highest interference in 1 position of 2 and 3 set locations. Direct modifications into 4 track location line position of the travels. In position of power lines of 3 triangulation line connections, up line swing lines in a 3 track provision. All 3 calculations. Now, directing modification, how fast your line connection your eyes go into position line centers. Triangulation lines of right, position of left, right, left, right, right, left, left, right, right. Okay? That's what your eyes are going to be doing. All right? It's reshaping its anomalies as seconds, minutes, and hours. The time frame changes correlation setting. Your false narratives, your space changes the medical line communication setting location in your ventricle system. And it changes heart correlation line condition, solar sail, and trackification. Changes all position and travel lines, position location, your time frame, puts a location line condition, hours, minutes, and seconds attraction. Balance communication line centers puts all communication setting in position, all calculation. All through set design. Okay? So your eye line centers and your box line, the triangulations, and triangulation in your box is just trying to find the balance of spectrum lights of communication in your eye receptors. Sending lines of communication setting puts all levels of its inventory of force recognition of time sequence and its traffic flow and force recognition of time sequence and calculation of the setting. Putting position to your location system is understanding your solar cell design guides. They know exactly what your eyes are doing. Right over left, left over right, right? That's provision cycles. 3 tractions, 4-line division in a 3-line connection. Okay, and that's a female cycle. Female cycle, ladies. Okay, men, getting position travel calculation on the screen interference. Also with the calculation species. Men is in a box, triangulation, box. Okay, females in triangulation, box, triangulation. Okay, now getting that position line centers, the triangulation of 3 set positional programs, 4 lines of provision, and a 3/4 setting attractions. All right, female, right? Female. Sublocation false, sublocation of space, sublocation of time. Okay? Now, calculation of 4-track location and provisions, 3-track line provision, and 4-track line conditions. Okay? So, female, male. All right, that's how it works. Your eye central line calculation setting is right over left now, left over right. So the provision cyclist has to understand what you're doing through all direct location of direct and redirect centers of center coordinates and setting of track lines in set position of flywheel and track location of balance. Okay? So, so once you understand the patterns, you take in position, you can cross signals, you can take the female and the male cycle, which means you're communicating to somebody else. You have to direct your signals in triangulation reset position programs first before you get in your position of travels. So understanding the core line centers, okay? So male on male, female on female, okay? Male on female, female on male, time frame. 2 panels of correlation settings of Earth, 2 correlation lines, calculations of space. Track position line cycles and high centers of platform in communication of balance and set location and track locations. Directing modifications into pi generation screens. High color line centers of clock lines and high center interference and position of balance. Balance position all calculation lines and high center interference and travel position of point system in direct signals of face recognition. That's set design. Okay? And this is all done through your eyes. Okay? Hours, minutes, and seconds. Seconds, minutes, and hours. Seconds, minutes, and hours. Okay? Locking frame line and time frame and non-aligned center location and location frame takes you out of position location and polarities because there is no polarity. There is no space. There is no time. Okay? Just you and center of operation. All laws, all calculation. Directing modification line screens, guys, is really how you understand your spectrums and how you see yourself through calculation. Point lines attractions, okay? All right. Remember I told you about the mapping sequence, how you have to really understand the measurements, get location of your scales and line condition with balance. Well, you have to really understand how to surface the course setting the 12 track location of your eyes lines. 3 track divisions, here, here, and set location set here, all right? The only difference is you're working with the triangulation line conditions, okay? So sets locations in the 12, sets location of 12, sets location of 12, right? So you got 12, 24, and line conditions setting, 24 lines. Seek locations on lines of 10. Sets lines calculation to its position locations, 24, 34. Add 2 lines, 36 lines of fields and track locations, 2, 2, 2, track location lines of provision, broad location setting, Pluto, and track locations. All right? So 36 fields and eye central line conditions each eye. Direct modification lines and high center interference in position of travel lines and point lines attractions and set lines of communications of point line division. Center core line calculation setting puts line communication to face recognition of 12 line cycles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in set location. Okay? So the team's going to be working with 36 fields in each eye. 3 lines of attractions in Pluto, 3 line provisions of 2, 2, and track location equals lines, high center interference of 3, 3, 3, 3. Okay? Track calculation information line cycles in Pluto. Pluto lines information cycle, information panel, surfacing engine, and set calculation screen line. Direct modification screen interference into your line center interference into gamma radiation screen lines. Direct modification screen interference puts you to levels of operation cycle. Setting correlation lines at high center interference. So inline rotation, you've seen 3 numbers. Add that equation line to high center interference. times sequence lines, calculation line interference, XT thousandths, calculate height interference, you're going to see 3 12s. Okay, in position. You got to get that in balance. So we have 4 provisions of cycles, 3 track line conditions. So you're creating line communication lines of high center interference. So 3 lines of 1, 3 lines of 2, 3 lines of 3, and 3 lines of 4 in traction. Okay. Above system is center correlation line centers. Now the position of travel lines says communication of 4 lines of panels, so 3, 3, 3, 3. Platforms 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Platforms 1, 2, and 3 in traction. Okay, that's provision cycles through the eye central line position location to all lines of all communication of face recognition. Okay, that's what the team's coming into. Right? So I know there's a lot going on. Eh? It's unbelievable how you really start to see the connections to his plasma to understand the holographic design, how you have to come into your traffic of inventory and allocation. Okay, how you perceive and see things, guys. So your eye central calculation line centers, your plasmas. Okay, very powerful stuff. All right, now get in that line track lines. Once you get into the ground lines, it changes all levels of view, oxide, setting line interference. Once you guys reach 100 settings and travels, sets position location of 4. So 100 line sequence, location of 4 settings, allocates 1 lines and 1 position of 14. Sets 4 track lines of provision into 4 line cycles, 44 track location system, and 4 line cycles in set location. Now the generation screen lines of high center interference is a 4 lines equals lines of 5. Puts position lines of 9. That track location line centers, add 4 line position locations, add 2 in attractions, adds lines of 6 in set location. Puts position line center and line rotation of yin and yang at process communication. Okay? Direct and redirect, right? Understanding more lines. So your eyes are going to become magnetic line screens now, and laser direct signals in a 12-line cycle. So you're going to see 12 lines of cycles everywhere, and everything calculation you got to get balanced with through box triangulation or triangulation box. But remember, in position location, when it comes into the female cycles and the male cycles, you're working with the triangulation box, triangulation. That is the female cycle. Okay, remember that. The calculation of the male is box, triangulation box. That's how it works in set location in your eyes. Setting correlated line calculations high interference. So the triangulation lines, it's Earth. Sets locations equal lines of time. Sets location lines of time. Set correlation of center of time. Set position of false of time. Center of time, false of time. False of space. Okay. Box position line calculation equal lines of its Earth. Interapplications. Setting position of right equals lines of Earth and calculation line centers of box triangulation box. It's set location. Okay. So yes, I know there's a lot of data coming into your screen lines and high center interference, but you guys have to understand the platitude screen interference of travel lines, of point lines of fractions now. This is going to help you a lot more when you really understand how to see yourself in all calculations, right? Through right and left and right. I told you, your eyes are changing line screens now, okay? So when you get into that line communications, you got to get 12 lines of factors into one cycle. Okay, and then things get really interesting after this applications. Remember, you're wearing those line conditions of those glasses, 3D glasses, right? You're at the theater. And in that theater, line position locations, you got 3 lacing lines of communications. You got to get bounced with, right? That's all it is. Getting bounced with that comes in a cross-line screen line set location of 6. Sets location lines of 8. And set location lines of 9, 10, 11, and 12 in set locations, right? Getting bounced with that, then you see the holographic structure of design and position of travel. Once you see that, it comes out through the equation line communication setting in your position of the system in travel communication of point centers and interference position. It comes out of its design, right? So once you understand the right over left, right is the line calculation setting. Get into box line, okay, into applications. So the position of males really have to understand their box and 4-point tractions and location of grids, right? In a triangulation, right? Sets lines of 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay? 4 lines of 3, right? You see the 4 and you see the 3, the triangle, all right? So that puts lines calculation to your binaries, setting lines calculation of 0, sets correlation of 0, sets location of 0, and set location of 0 and 4 track location. Power over pi and direct signals into cell modification screen lines, adaptation of energy screen lines. High center interference and position of travel lines in a 45-degree location setting to a location grid and set locations. Travel position of 4 lines of point lines attractions. You can go into 4 false narratives and set locations. But you need a truth in the center, which is your time frame. All lines of high center platforms put you all communications, all line centers in real time in set location. Okay. Travel mechanism over pi, you can change the core lines attractions now in your box line frames. Point lines attractions and graph calculator screen location setting to your locations, all through clocking. Or you can change it again in line center locations and add up another box frame position of travel lines. This is all through male cycles and out calculation to its polarity and set design. Okay? That's all through your eyes. You got to get balanced with. All right. So getting in that point lines attractions, you understand this and all levels of communications in line center locations. Understanding the right and the left and right, guys. The provision cycles lines of time frame. Balance, balance, balance. Line centers of false, line centers of time, and line centers of false. Okay? False, time, false. Right? Your time measures put you all lines, all communications all at once. That puts you in real time. Your body frame, your body capacitor sets the line communication setting to your Mach line rotations. That puts all levels of your provisions, that puts all levels of your cycles, and all line communication setting in your travel communications. Point lines of craftsmen and how you come into your line communications in your geological, geometric, and geographical design of your 2 provisions and 1 cycle of set location of spectrum. Okay? Very, very complicated stuff. But it's very powerful in set positions. All right? Now, the time frame position of the spacing line is magnetic high line screens. They're in false. They're position lines. They're not in their time frame, the center. They're in the line communication setting to track lines of seconds, minutes, and hours. Try to understand that position point centers. So your seconds, minutes, and hours are now hours, minutes, and seconds at center in your flywheel and communication. Direct lines and modification lines of earth tones and high center interference and modulation. So that's how it's all set up now in provision lines of digital imaging and location your algorithms, location your geological system, geometry setting, and geographical system, a set design. Okay? That's it, we're done. And 111. Nothing is coincidence in any way and form. You definitely need to drink your water now. I showed you so many provision cycles, how you have to come into balance on your eyes now. The spectral communication lines is high calculating your systems, releasing all those filters at set locations. How you see yourself through right and left and right. Okay? See you in 5.